Really?
Not always, but a lot of them will. Most of them will if you send them an email. What I would do is do both. Send them the letter in hard copy and send them an email with pretty much the same text on it. And then call them. Because it's really, really easy to shoot off an email. It's a lot harder to email, post a letter, give a call and organise a meeting. And that's where you demonstrate your commitment to it. You know how many online surveys get, spruiked around Facebook every day? They don't mean anything, and that's why we did the hard copy survey, because that could actually be lodged, and that has been lodged with our Victorian Parliament. And there's some momentum around that as a result. But everyone knows that clicktivism means nothing. You can sign 1,000 surveys a day, and it means nothing. But if you follow it up with a bit of action, they'll take it a lot more seriously as well. I think...
you can't differentiate.
I understand what you're saying, I really do.
Because here's the man with the licence that can produce the swampy
except as long as we've got laws at the state level that say that the production and sale of raw milk for human consumption is illegal, all of those documents can mean nothing in a minute.
Yeah,
and that's the issue.
No, it's not a law, Jeff.
We can
It's a regulation.
We can talk about the difference. There are laws and there are regulations involved in this. The particular rule that came in last year around the tainting of raw milk was a regulation that was introduced. If we don't actually have the right to the production and sale of raw milk enshrined in the Act, they can introduce as many regulations as they want, and one minute we might have a way to get around them and to get our raw milk, and one minute we might not, which is the situation that a lot of us found ourselves in December. So I see what you're saying, and we do have these ways of getting raw milk now and getting smaller wins along the way. Ultimately, what we want is a system like in California, where actually it is legal, it's regulated, and once it's legal and regulated, it's very difficult for them to bring in new regulations that take it away again. That's where we're headed, and that's where we've really got to keep our focus. The little wins along the way can keep us sustained, but we can't be satisfied with those because they're not stable. We can't trust them.
Also, we have raw milk cheese in the food chain. If raw milk is so bloody dangerous, why are Coles, Safeway and Aldi selling raw milk cheese? If it's so dangerous, please go down and take that stuff off the shelf now.
Yeah. And I think those are two of the really central arguments that are what we're making in this lobby. That the regulations exist, they're working well in New Zealand, which is a country with pretty much the same population dynamics and government dynamics and distribution dynamics as Australia, and we've already got the provisions for raw milk cheese, so it doesn't make sense. And I think it's with that sense of hope and easiness that we should really approach this lobbying. Going into a meeting with an MP and saying things are really hard and this requires so much work on your part will get you nowhere. Going in and saying, this is really easy, it's a rational decision, there's evidence that it's worked elsewhere, and we're really only half a step away from regulating for safe raw milk in Australia is what's going to get you somewhere, because it's an easy thing for them to do and it's an easy win for them to actually get some support and a bit of kudos from their constituency and from the broader Australian public as well. I think you had a good degree. Yeah, I think the issue is still that we need proper legislative protection for the sale, production, consumption of raw milk in order to protect ourselves from the regulatory whims of people in charge, which is what we saw last December, January with Jack Garrett.
You know, I've had a discussion with my local MP. You know what he said? Yeah, Mike, he said, I've drunk raw milk all my life. He's my local MP there. But he said, unfortunately, none of us MPs can do anything about it. You know what he said after that? He said, Dr. Rosemary Lester, she said, and when she says, we the MPs can't do anything about it. That's the thinking of them.
But that's exactly the thinking of the states that Mark outlined earlier in the US, where they had exactly the same situation. They went from having incredibly strong regulatory rules, the narratives that the doctors know best, you've got the Paediatrics Association saying that this is a danger for the children, and still a public campaign, a sensible, researched, well-backed up public campaign managed to turn that around. And I think that's where we can really take some guidance.
Question for you, Justin. By the way, you've done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Fantastic. mind saying this woman's got it going on, because we've seen exactly what you've outlined in strategy work extremely well in multiple different states. You've got a jewel here, guys. Really, you do. Fantastic. Great advice. It's just a matter of getting people to get behind. That's it, folks. And whatever differences you might have between Swampy and others, get behind the movement, because the movement needs to have, not infighting, needs to have a coalesced unity together. I would ask one question. Is there an opportunity in a process that you would imagine where people could come and testify and actually have their opinions spoke in front of a testimony of a committee or something in the process? Is that process open here?
It's not.
Oh my God. When we had testimony in California, I had 1,400 moms turn up with their kids.
We don't
Some of them
breastfeeding
breastfeeding, saying, we want our raw milk, don't you dare touch it. And let me tell you what, the committee agreed 100%. The politics was done by the moms showing up and saying, we want our raw milk. Ron, you were there. So it's unfortunate you can't have the committee's hearings from the people, because the people would speak loudly. Thank you so much for your advice tonight. It's been excellent.
The only thing I would add is that we can't do it in the formal way that it's done in the US. We can do it in other ways. By having meetings, by attracting media, by getting the messages out, the testimonials out about this, by going in and meeting with your MPs or the groups of MPs who are responsible for decisions, it can certainly open doors that you or someone else from the movement might be invited to give information or to provide some sort of testimony to groups that are considering the issues, but we just don't have that same formal.
Currently there's an inquiry, a Senate inquiry that David Linehan has put forward into nanny state. Yeah, so there is actually opportunity for people to make submissions, and I think the raw milk movement...
It's a bit different, because what we do in those processes here in Australia is we make our submissions in writing, and then there might be some open public meetings, but it's very different to the way that it works in the States, where people can show up and the decision makers have to sit there, as I understand, until the line of people has all gone through and everyone has had their say. So we don't have that system, but we do have a lot of other opportunities for this. And it's no problem for us that we don't have exactly the same legislative framework as in the US. Other countries, other jurisdictions have also managed to turn around the laws around raw milk. I was in Italy recently and I was getting my raw milk from a vending machine around the corner from my house. That wasn't like that 20 years ago. And I was meeting old Italian nonnas who were saying, we grew up drinking raw milk and then they took it away from us and now we can get it for €1 a bottle at our raw milk vending machine. You know, so it does change in a lot of different places. Just because we don't have exactly the same opportunities, we've got a whole lot of other opportunities that we can use to get there.
I just want to make a statement about the Senate inquiry that you just mentioned, the nanny state or freedom of choice. You actually told the movement about that inquiry, and in about 24 hours I rewrote the title page of the research document to put the words freedom of choice on the top of the remaining part of the title, and submitted it, and it went in, it's being received, and it was mentioned to us by Jennifer MacDonald at Food Safety Victoria yesterday. So Dairy Food Safety Victoria. She's read it as a submission to that inquiry, not as just simply the case for raw milk. So it took about 3 minutes to produce that submission.
And 6 months to produce the research.
Well, behind it was, of course, a lot of other work. So thank you very much for that.
So I'm going to hand out, we've only got about 12 copies of the lobby pack, but have a look at it, have a flick through. It is available on the Facebook page along with the research pack. Well, I'll pass it around. If you'd like a copy, take it, or share it between a couple. What you'll find in there on the first page is a general introduction to what's in the pack and what you can do. Then you'll find the template. This is all, you can just cut and paste this. We've got it up as a PDF, and we've also got the letter up or we will have the letter up as just a Word document so that you can easily edit it and send it off, print it out and send it off. Then you've got a guide to effective lobbying meetings. We've gone through a lot of this today, but it's something to revisit as you're preparing for the meeting. Identify who you want to meet, request the meeting, how do you actually prepare for the meeting? And it's got tips for when you're in the meeting, how to actually approach the discussion that you'll be having. And then it's got on the last page the feedback form, just a little feedback form. Like I said, it's not onerous. It'll probably take you, it'll probably be a nice debrief. after your meeting, it'll take you about 5 minutes to just plug in some key information so that we can keep track of it and make sure that we keep our lobbying strategy on track. Are there any last questions before I hand over to Rebecca?
Is that food standards?
What I was suggesting is that it's our elected officials who have the capacity to make this change. If we get our MPs and our upper and our lower house members in Victoria on board with the safe production and sale of raw milk for consumption, then they can make the decision that says to Dairy Food Safe, you just have to regulate this. Figure out what needs to be done and how to do it, and then they'll go about and do that. Dairy Food Safe can't make those changes themselves. We need the political pressure. That's a message that we're getting from the MPs that we've already lobbied with. That there are people who are on board. We've got MPs, we've got a whole lot of rural MPs who grew up drinking raw milk. These are natural allies for us. We've got parties like the Greens that are concerned about localised food production and farmers' access to markets. So we can work with those people to then generate the pressure that we need to actually get the big changes. Yeah. I don't think that realistically we're not going to get a seat on FSANZ. What we can do is ensure that our message is being heard, and certainly the lobbying that's being done by the Producers Association and by the individual farmers, by the meetings that are being held, is contributing to that process. As consumers, we can certainly lobby towards that, and it's important to keep the FSANZ decisions on the table for negotiation, for discussion in the public and with the MPs. But we also need to focus on getting the political momentum, because FSANZ is not going to change it if we've got MPs with the loudest voice like Jane Garrett saying, no, 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 killer milk. So that's what we need to really aim at in this lobbying. So I think the key message from all of this is that we need to be lobbying our elected representatives, we need to be supporting our producers of raw milk, we need to be connecting the dots between those who might actually be involved. So I think it sounds like the best thing would be direct them to the ARMM, share the information that we've got, get them involved. I mean, we don't hold a lot of public meetings. We know that it's a difficult time. Weeknights are always difficult. We're trying to play around with the different options of getting in touch with people. So give us feedback as well. If Facebook's not working, what else do we need to be doing? If this isn't working, what else can we be doing? And just get out there. You've got to show up. Like Mark was saying, if you show up, you can make a difference. But we've all got to stay energised with this and show up, even though it's easy to get a bit lazy because most of us still have our raw milk coming into our fridges every week. So despite that, get out there and lobby and let us know how it goes, and good luck.
Thank you.